We got an update on Filip Hallander's status heading into the 26-27 season this week, and Pat and I are going to talk about that, plus get into Fan Take Friday coming up right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Friday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Joined by my co-host, Patrick Damp. You can follow him on most social media platforms at Synonym for Wet. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. And you can find us on Instagram at LockedOn_Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen / watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. A bit later on in the show, we're going to get into your takes and your questions for Fan Take Friday. Pat had a pretty cool poll up for you two talking about when do you think the Penguins will be bona fide contenders once again. Not winning the Stanley Cup, but just bona fide contenders in general. We'll get into that a bit later on. But first off, Pat, let's get into some news regarding Filip Hallander. So this comes courtesy of Pittsburgh. They were able to put the interview into Google Translate just because this was a Swedish interview. This was published a few days ago. And Hallander said, basically, I played a few games. I picked up some minor issues. They ran some tests. He's like, some of the readings weren't quite right, and they wanted to play it safe. So I went back to Pittsburgh, and that's when they found out that something was in his lung. And he even said he feared his hockey career was potentially over. And he did say he has one final test, though, when he gets to Pittsburgh, since he hasn't taken any medication. But after that, everything should be fine. Then there's a month of hard training before camp starts. My goal is to earn a spot on the Pittsburgh Penguins and be a key player. After everything I have been through this past year, I find it hard to imagine anyone more motivated than me to step out onto the ice. First off, I absolutely love that answer. Second of all, I'm just happy that he's doing okay. That's first and foremost, because you and I have seen, Pat, all Penguins fans have seen how hard it is to come back from something like this. Pascal Dupuis is the prime example, but we just want to make sure that he is okay. Like, that's the biggest thing when you're trying to, deal with this, go through something like this. But if he is indeed good to go, he gets through that final test, he is going to have at least a chance to make this team. And I said that going into last year's camp. This is a player who was lighting it up overseas. The Penguins brought him back. They felt they saw something there. You saw him in some of the games early on in the season where, yeah, he had the ability to be a 12 or a 13-4 when healthy. He just wasn't able to stay healthy just due to the blood clot issues, So if that is indeed in the past, he will have a shot going into camp.
The most underrated part of this is the motivation for Hallander, because it's one thing to do the whole motivated athlete dance when you're coming into a competitive camp. And most of the time it is legitimate, but it's at the end of the day, athlete talk. It's just guys saying, hey, I'm motivated to make the team, rah, rah, let's go. Hollander's career was this close to being over.
Yeah.
And when you have that experience, when you have that mindset of on a random day, this can all just be over, he is going to be really motivated to make the team because he saw what life looked like on the other side. And as the interview he had in the Swedish publication, he basically said, like, we thought we were good to go. I took the medication. I did all of the low level training while I was taking the medication. I went to Wilkes-Barre, and then something else went wrong. So he really has gone through it in the last year. So I'm very curious to see what he does in camp, because the other side of this is he is going to have to work his ass off because he's been out for a while. And I know he's been training over in Sweden. He's been working hard. I have no doubts, but we say it all the time. There are only so many things that match the intensity of an NHL training camp, an NHL preseason, and then an actual NHL game. So I'm very curious to see where he is, but overall, really happy that he's on the road to recovery, and it looks like he'll be ready to go for camp. And then I'm really excited to see what he does when camp starts.
agree on both points just because, the biggest thing that is important is his long-term health. We want him to be okay. Looks like that's going in the right direction. Now, can he make this team? And it's going to be even harder for him this year compared to last year. A, he's missed so much time, and B, Pat, they just brought in more players from the outside who are also going for these spots. And there's other younger players in the organization that are also going to be pushing like him to make this team. Like, we all thought last year's camp was competitive, and we've said that a lot on the show. This year's camp, I think, is potentially going to be twice as competitive when you look at the players that are signed to NHL contracts, the players who are a bit younger that are trying to make this team, others players who, may not be ready just yet, but are going to at least push for spots. It's going to be really fun to see. I mean, hell, you even just go on Puckpedia. They list at least 15 forwards there. Filip Hallander, this is another forward added to the mix. Again, they are so deep at this position. It's really not even funny, to be honest.
I mean, the thing that is going to be a challenge for Hallander and a lot of others is hilarious. You say you can just bring up Puckpedia. Guess what I got on my screen right now? Puckpedia.
Good.
But you look at the depth chart at this point on August 21st, you figure guys like Raquel, Crosby, Rust, Chinnikov, Novak, Malkin, Kindle, Robertson, Lizotte, and Dewar are pretty much all guaranteed to make the roster. That pretty much leaves you with 4-ish spots, 4, maybe 5, depending upon who you think is a lock and who isn't. But as we saw last year, they're not pulling any punches. If you come into camp and you're Kuzmenko, you're Robertson, you're Koivunen, and you don't have a good camp and a good preseason, they're not going to hesitate to waive you. They're not going to hesitate to put you on waivers and send you down to Wilkes-Barre, just because Dan Muse and Kyle Dubas have been pretty clear in the last year that they are going to give spots to guys who play well. So not only is it going to be a big challenge for Hallander getting back up to speed, but he has got to compete with a lot of other forwards who are trying to only get a handful of spots.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I disagree on the Kuzmenko point. I'm pretty sure he's a lock no matter what. Nick Robertson, considering the contract they gave him, and you and I have talked about that, I think he's basically a lock at this point too. I see him on the third line. Players on the fourth line outside of Lizotte and Dewar, if you want to argue that, sure. I still think like someone like Elmer Söderblom is going to make the team, by the way. But he's still, like anyone else, going to have to earn his spot. But
I mean, also in fairness, for a couple of those names, your Kuzmenkos, your Robertsons, etc., they would have to completely and totally face plant. But at the same time, it's in the realm of possibilities. Highly doubtful, but it could happen. But that's the thing that I'm saying, is that even though those guys would have to totally face plant, it also doesn't mean that show up, go through the motions, and you're on the team. You are going to have to still earn it. I think they're very capable and more than likely capable of doing it, but there are people who are there. They are going to have to look over their shoulders at.
Yeah. I mean, I'd still put it at, 95 to 99% that they make it. The 1 to 5% where they don't is where they just basically fully no show. And I'm like, looking lazy at practices, fully non-existent during preseason games, even though the preseason schedule is shorter. That type of stuff, just don't see it happening. But for some of the players a bit lower on the roster, they're especially going to have to earn it. I mean, as you said, everyone is going to have to earn their spot, but especially those bottom two lines, the younger players, they're going to really have to earn it. And again, it's another part of camp that I am really, really excited about. But that's going to do it for this first segment. Coming up in the second segment, Pat and I are going to get into the fan take poll that he posted on YouTube this morning, which discusses when the Penguins will be in contention, and we'll also get to your responses to that as well. That's coming up right after this. Before that, though, we have to talk about our first sponsor, which is FanDuel. Locked On Penguins is brought to you by FanDuel. And baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a home run today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in their game. If you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with every day's games, whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on matchups across the league. Every game has someone capable of going deep. Now you get the chance to make your prediction before first pitch. So, are you ready to play your game today? If you are, join all the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who is hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, we're back here on the Friday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Dampen. Man, we're getting really close to hockey season now. A little over a month until the season begins. Preseason is basically a full month away. We got soccer back in action. Arsenal, the defending champs, won today. I'm very hyped about that. The NFL season's coming up here. College football starts next week. Pat, we are entering one of the prime months for sports with basically everything coming back. I am stoked about it, but let's get into this poll that you posted this morning. So you asked, I should say, when do you think the Penguins will be contenders once again? You put 2 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, or 5+ years. Right now, after just about 100 votes, 3 to 5 years is winning at 47%, 2 to 3 years at 28%, and then 5+ years at 26%. And I'm kind of in agreement with a few people here where I'm going to combine, for example, Pens fan for life, 1986. Maddie also says on here, 3+ years, 3 years minimum, if they want to do it right, in my opinion. However, it's not always done right. Pens fan for life says 3 years minimum if they can pick up a top left-handed defenseman, maybe get a little luck in the lottery, moving up in the top 10 for the next couple of years. G-Tot says 3 to 5 years because I don't see the Penguins being contenders while Crosby is still active. I think we'll be a bubble team. Yeah, I'm kind of in that camp. It's probably going to be 3 to 5 years, especially if everything is done right. But again, biggest thing that they're missing is the next wave of legit high-end talent. The easiest way to get it is at the top of the draft. Probably not going to get that during a season when you have players like Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and Carlson. You'd have to trade into the top 10 to get that pick or just get insane lottery luck like the Islanders just did with Matthew Schaefer. But as I always say, all that matters is that you get the high-end talent. But that's really the biggest thing they're missing in terms of really taking that next step and getting to be a true contender once the big guns are gone.
That's the biggest X factor, is when do they find the next guy? And the thing I will add to that as well is we all have to temper our expectations for that, because it's not going to be the next Sidney Crosby. Now, I know I can get clipped and taken out of context, because if somehow, some way, the Pittsburgh Penguins, who for all of my existence have had one, if not both, of the best players on the planet, whether it's Lemieux Yager, Malkin Crosby, you name it. I do think, though, that they need to find a way to take that big swing. And it's something that I continue to reiterate on this show. Kyle Dubas has done a very good job of giving them multiple directions to go. They have one of the cleanest salary cap sheets in all of the league, to the point where they will have more money than they know what to spend it on. They also have a ton of draft capital, which they can package together to move up or go acquire somebody. They also have a lot of good contracts that will be able to be moved. They've also got, regardless of what Pronman says, a pretty solid prospect pool that can be used to either fill out your depth in the bottom half of the lineup or be used in trades to make that big swing. Yeah. So they're in a good position. The next challenge will be finding, identifying, and acquiring somehow that next big elite long-term piece, whoever that may be. So I think 3 to 5 years is the reasonable expectation. Yeah. But if they're unable to find a way to get that next talent, it may be a little bit longer, but I will say this. I don't think that they'll be stuck in the mushy middle all that long. I do think they've done a good job of finding a way to keep themselves competitive while still building. So I would be extremely doubtful if this does last longer than 5 years of not being a contender. I'm not saying win the Stanley Cup. I'm not saying any of that, but I don't think we're going to be in for any extended misery. I do think that it might be a little frustrating. It might be a little boring to the point where maybe they hang around the playoff picture. Maybe they get in and lose in the first round or make the second round. But I don't think there's any prolonged misery on the horizon.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be prolonged. I still could see them, having a couple lean years once all of the big guns are gone. And I'm talking like bad seasons, like, bottom 5 level bad. I could definitely still see that happening, especially if they don't have, that next wave of talent by then. I still think, part of the reason why they are building up this prospect pool, and they've done a decent job at it so far. I don't think it's close to the best prospect pool in the league, but I would still say it's around a little bit above league average, but they have a lot of quantity in there. They still need a bit more quality. And I think they're starting to build it up more, partly because they're going to try to potentially use some of these players to go out and get that next big player that's, in his early to mid 20s that can be here for a while. It's one of the reasons why you put up a prospect pool like this. Obviously, you want some of these players to make it onto your NHL squad, but, not all of them are going to pan out. So if you keep building it up like this, you could potentially use some to go and get some good players. Now, these teams have to value these players, and so far, there has not been a big move yet as they continue to build this thing up. We have to see if that changes during the season next summer. But again, it's still a process here. I still have it in the 3 to 5 years range. I'm not at the 5+ years range right now. I'm still of the opinion that, a rebuild that takes close to a decade is kind of starting to go away in the NHL. And if you're kind of doing that, you're screwing yourself over, in my opinion. People can disagree, and that's fine. I just think like that style of rebuild that takes, around that time or close to it, even like 8+ years, I just don't think you're going to see as much of it anymore as the cap continues to rise and all that stuff.
It's also an imperfect comparison, but one other X factor in this Penguins rebuild timeline is they could have a Florida Panthers year where everybody just gets hurt. And all of a sudden they find themselves near the bottom of the standings just because you've got, again, this isn't to denigrate them, but all of a sudden you're looking at Ben Kindle, first line center, and love Ben Kindle, but I think his ceiling is 2C. And when you have a bunch of injuries, everybody's hurt for either long-term or medium-term, you fall down the standings. And hopefully and I know, again, imperfect comparison, Kyle Dubas doesn't do the thing that Ray Shero did in 2011 where he goes, well, my top 2 centers are hurt, so I'm going to go trade for James Neal and make the playoffs. And for some reason, go to Game 7 against Tampa and fall down the draft board. But there's also that possibility that there's a chance where they don't have good injury luck. And if we know anything about the Pittsburgh Penguins, they don't always have injury luck. So there is a chance that there could be a year this year, the year after, a bunch of guys get hurt, and you just look at it and go, well, ain't our year. Maybe we get some lottery luck.
Yeah, and just going off that, I wanted to get to a couple of comments that I found awesome. I love the optimism. One comment says, this year, lose to Edmonton in the final. I will say this. If the Oilers get to the Stanley Cup final under Mike Babcock, I'll eat my hat. I just think he's a terrible coach now, and I think that's just going to be a hilarious disaster that I can't wait to watch from the outside. Another one, why the F not this year? Have some faith. You know what? Again, I love the optimism. I don't think they're a contender this year objectively, but I love the optimism. Don't get me wrong. So
I'm just going to quote South Park. It's not impossible, but it is improbable.
I like that reference. So nice job. I've been doing some Family Guy stuff on this show, as you know. Gee, I don't know, not psychic, man, but we could do other ones in there as well. But I like that one. But yeah, I think this year probably not going to happen. But I appreciate any and all optimism that fans have going into this year because it's going to be exciting. We all know that. Like, this team is never boring. Last year blew all of us away. We were so excited to get playoff content, and who knows, maybe they're able to do it again this year, and that would also be a lot of fun. But that's going to do it for the second segment. Coming up to end the show, we're going to get into more of your takes and more of your questions right after this. All right, we're back here on the Friday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Damp. And Pat, let's get into a few more before we end the week here. This one comes from Comet Fast, Pat, who we have answered this type of question quite a bit. And he goes, hey guys, not a Pens related question, but I got a buddy from California coming here for the first week of September. We are going to the Pirates game on Wednesday, but what are some places you recommend we do here in Pittsburgh? We've gone to Pens games versus the Sharks, and we've been to the Heinz History Center, both Inclines, The Point, Primanti's, and Dave and Buster's, Pat, I'm going to let you lead point on this because I have some good recommendations, but I know yours are probably going to be a little bit better. So,
depending upon the last time this person has been to Pittsburgh, I don't know when that is. If it's been within the last 6 months or so, this one you can strike from the record, but definitely go check out Market Square. Yeah. They just completely redid it and revitalized it. So it looks incredible. And obviously you've got a ton of restaurants there. You've got a ton of attractions there. It's a great little spot right in the heart of downtown. And it looks absolutely stunning now that it's been redone. If you want the best view of the city, I know everybody is going to tell you go to Mount Washington, but that's what amateurs do. What pros do is you go to the West End Overlook. The West End Overlook is the most breathtaking view you will get of Pittsburgh. And since it is going to be September, here's to hoping you're here on a nice, sunny, or as we say here in the city, partly cloudy kind of day. You get that kind of weather with the rivers, the confluence, and the skyline. It's absolutely gorgeous. And there's a bunch of locations, some near the city, some a little bit further out. This one is for our friend and my old co-host. If you are a fan of wings, find a Big Shot Bob's, go there and get yourself some wings because buddy, they are the best that you can find in the city, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of people who have takes on wings, but Big Shot Bob's is the one that you can't miss.
They are very good. To go off that, if you are a big fan of Italian food like I am, I have two recommendations. Number one, Dish, which is in Southside. Fantastic restaurant, arguably the best Italian food in the city. And this one, it's a bit more expensive, but they give you a lot of food. Alla Familia in Allentown, it is electric. And you get like a salad course, a pasta course, and a main entree. You can get an appetizer if you want. Make reservations probably a couple weeks beforehand. That place is fantastic. And Pat, of course, go to the Strip District. You can get a whole bunch of fun Pen stuff, fun Steelers stuff, Pirate stuff. There's some good restaurants down there. It might be a hot take because I've seen people go against this place recently. I love Roland's. I love their lobster roll there. It has gotten a little bit more expensive as of late, which is annoying, but I love that place. Their bar is fun and their food's pretty good. So,
and they said that they did go to the Heinz History Center if you want a really fun museum as well, and it's not going to be far from PNC Park. Carnegie Science Center, well, it's called the Cayman Science Center now, but the Science Center on the North Shore there's so much there. You can burn a whole day there. It's a ton of fun. And I think it'll still be there when this person's in town, but they've got the new exhibit, Science of Speed. You can basically ride a go-kart track and learn all about what goes into racing. So Cayman Science Center is, even as a 36-year-old man, I still absolutely love it there.
Yes. That one is good as well. So plenty of really good places, plenty of really good things to do once you come back to Pittsburgh. This next one, Pat, comes from, again, Matt Limegrover. He's the assistant offensive line coach of the University of Minnesota. I love that he listens to our show. That's pretty cool. And he asks, we're getting close to the time where PTOs start being announced. Are there any defensemen the Penguins might look to add to bolster their left side depth? And do you guys think Caleb Jones can or will have any role with the defensemen this year? Thanks as always. I'll start with Caleb Jones. Probably not. I know he made the team out of camp last year. He played in a few games, got hurt, was out for a while, obviously had the big suspension at the end of the season. I think he is just really far down the depth chart. Maybe he gets in a few games as a call-up, but I think making the team out of camp, considering the moves they have made, and I know the left side is still not very good, I don't see it as of right now. I could be dead wrong. I also just did not think he was very good in the games that he played last year. So those are my thoughts on that. As for the defensemen they could sign, you look at the top remaining free agents defensively, again, Pat, there's just not much. Like the top defensemen that are available right now, overall, regardless of the side, Logan Stanley, John Klingberg, Nick Blankenberg, Carson Soucy, like a lot of this is just not very good. So I think they're content to go into the season with what they have.
Yeah, I think that the only name that I could think of that might have a bit of a PTO run, and it's just because he's one of Kyle Dubas's guys, is Michael Bunting. I'm surprised he hasn't landed anywhere yet. I could see him possibly being a PTO. He's got history here. He's been effective here, but we already know they have a trillion forwards. They don't really need one. I know this will be a hot take because I know a lot of people don't like him, and I think a lot of people know he kind of stinks. But we have seen the Penguins over the last couple of years take chances on guys who we were told stink, and they were at least serviceable. If they want to get bigger and they want to get a little bit harder to play against on D, if you put Logan Stanley on a PTO and he does all right, we know they're not contenders this year. If you can get him on the cheap and he plays well, we know that NHL general managers salivate over big defensemen. And if you can put him in sheltered minutes, have him do okay, throw a few big hits, not look like a disaster, you might be able to turn nothing into something with him. But again, to your point, you look at who's still available, it's a lot of bleh.
Yeah, I agree. And, as for Stanley, he's still only 28, but he's already had such a big dip already where I'm like, just don't really see the point. I feel like it's just like, but why though, if you bring in someone like that for a PTO and training camp? There's just not a lot of good options left at the end of the day. And then finally, Pat, before we get out of here, this one comes from Corey. Not on topic, but I've had this take for a while. I'm not sure where Tommy Galvis plays this year, but if it's in North America, I could see him making his NHL debut sometime this season with the question mark surrounding the defense, particularly the left side. I will stop you right there, Corey. He is not coming to North America this year. I know he has signed his ELC, and that has created a lot of questions, but the Penguins have confirmed through Amanda Kessel, other members of the front office, that he is going back to Europe this year on loan, and then he is going to come to North America. That's the plan, at least as I've read it as recently as today. So I understand everyone's excited to see Tommy Galvis. He's going to be here pretty soon, but he's going back to Europe for the 26-27 season.
The thing I would be curious to see is if when we get it here in the next couple weeks, if he's on the training camp roster, if they bring him to camp, because it does, and it wouldn't be unprecedented. It's happened before where a player says, oh, I'm going back to Europe, or I'm going back to college or junior or whatever. And then they have a good camp and they look like they fit. You can talk him into staying. And I'm like you and everybody else, I'm excited about Galvis. That dude can play. I do think overall, like unless he completely blows everybody away at camp, another year of pro hockey overseas will do better for his development than coming over now. But if he has an extraordinary camp, I could definitely see him maybe starting the year in Wilkes. And if some injuries happen, he could come up. But at the end of the day, I do think with where the Penguins are and where they want to go, they're going to be a little bit cautious and just say, you know what, head back over, take those big minutes, take being a key piece of your team over there. And then next year we'll revisit this.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. He's going to go back. He'll have a good season, I think. And then hopefully we'll get to see him come over to North America at the end of the season once Wilkes-Barre's finishing up the regular season, and maybe we can get a playoff run out of him. I know he'll have played a full regular season on his team overseas, but still getting him acclimated to North America at the end of the season and getting him a potential run with the AHL team, that would be a lot of fun and also pretty worth it. So stay tuned for that, but he is going overseas for the 26-27 season. And with that, that's going to do it for the Friday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. A little bit of news. Next week is our final week of 3 shows a week. And then the week of September 1st, we will be 4 shows, Tuesday through Friday. And then the week of September 7th, that is our official back to 5 shows a week, because training camp will be right around the corner, as will the Prospects Challenge and then preseason hockey. So it's coming, man. We are really excited for this season. It's going to start in a little over a month. So next week, final week of 3 shows, then we go to 4, and then we go back to daily. So for Patrick Damp, I'm Hunter Hodes. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. We'll be back on Monday or Tuesday, but we'll have 3 shows next week. Talk to you all then.